We were talking about, excuse me, about equanimity, and kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit. The meditation that we usually do, many of us here are familiar with, where we think about a person who we consider to be a friend, and we bring that person up to mind. And then we bring to mind a person that we consider to be difficult, sometimes labeled enemy, and we bring that person up to our mind. And then we bring to mind a person who we're pretty neutral about, usually a stranger. Bring the image of that person up to our mind. Might be somebody like at a checkout stand that you don't know, doesn't impact your life very much. And then as we do this meditation, we realize, like you ask yourself each time, like, why is this person my friend? Why do I see this person as an enemy? Why do I see this person as a stranger? And what becomes very clear pretty quickly, it's not a hard stretch of the mind to get to it all, is that central in each one of those is how they're relating to me. And so we realize from this meditation that we're actually designating people into these categories. They're not inherently in any of them. Someone who's, I'm feeling friendly as a friend to right now is somebody else's enemy. They're a stranger to somebody else. There's nothing on the side of that person that label is inherently who they are. They're not an enemy to everyone. They're not a friend to everyone. They're not a stranger to everyone. So this is how this meditation is usually taught. And so that's kind of the background of what I wanted to continue from last time about this little experiment of bringing to mind the image of a person, maybe who's a friend and a person you're having difficulty with. And then when you do this, it might be helpful to have the same circumstance. Like if you think, why is this person my friend? And you identify why you think they're your friend. Kind of be clear with that. And then the person who is difficult, why are they difficult? And be clear with that. And see the image that comes up. And so when I do this, I did this over, a couple of weeks, and what I realized from this is what the image of the person was always the same. They always look the same, and these are what I wanted to explain about this that I find really, I think this is kind of helpful. I like to see how the mind works. And so we've been learning on Thursday nights about the mind and awareness, about conceptual appearances. And so this is like, when you bring to mind that person who's a friend, you're not actually looking at them at that moment. So it's a mental image that you're creating in your mind. It's what we call a conceptual appearance, or a meaning generality is the words that, the translation we used previously. And one thing about that image is it's not as vivid, right? So if I'm looking at you and I see you right now, it's very vivid. When I close my eyes and I think about you, I can conjure up Jack, but it's not as vivid of an image. So when I do this meditation, I'm aware in my mind that the image isn't so vivid of the person. It's kind of like, here's one, here's the other, they're next to each other, because I was really examining, like, why do I do this, and trying to break through this. And what I kind of realized from this is that if I use the same story to bring up the image of the person, the image was always the same. They were just both looking the same all the time. But then, isn't that so strange? It's like that's the feeling of permanence that comes up, the distortion of permanence. And these conceptual appearances are said to be permanent. And I actually believe that's the case, that they're not changing moment by moment. You might change your whole story and you might have a completely new conceptual appearance, but it seems to me they actually are permanent. And so think about what's so odd about that is to every time you tell yourself that story, you have kind of the same image come up. But then you can just walk in the house and you can see the same person that you were thinking of, and they don't look anything like they did in that appearance. Like you watch your appearance come up, you tell yourself the same story, the same appearance comes up, and then you walk in the house or you're around the person who you were thinking about, and they're doing all different kinds of things. They're in all different kinds of moods, you're having all different kinds of interactions, and you can't actually hold the two. They're just like they just don't work. So I thought that was something quite useful to be aware of, because what we want to do is we want to see that we're really designating these things from our own side and find ways to break into it. And so just knowing that our mind, we have these distortions that go on in our mind. One of them is seeing things as permanent. So, you know, it's kind of like what they say is the definition of insanity, I think. If you
doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's what I realized some years ago when living here, how I was making myself quite miserable. I realized after a lot of misery that if I keep thinking the same way, I'll come to the same result. Think the same way, same result. That's, you know, and so that's what's happening even in this. You're telling yourself the same story. Maybe it's an emotional thing. You're not really having all the details of why you're, probably usually aren't. Usually you just have the emotion, you know, and the conceptions that lead to that emotion are kind of like not so clear because we're just not doing that. But boom, there's the image, they're the enemy, they're the person I'm so attracted to, I'm going to just ruin my life to lust after, you know. So I think this is part of what I think is in the types of causality that they explain in Buddhism. To me, this is part of what they call Sita Niyama, which is the kind of the functioning of cognition. This is, you know, what we kind of come into this world with, I think, in the way our mind works. We're set up to have these conceptual appearances, to understand things in that way. So we have this great opportunity to use our awareness to break through all of these things that our mind does, that we can see through really becoming aware and watching them, that they're actually quite illogical, and we can kind of undermine them to the point where when they come up, you can't really go with them. They'll have to lose their strength because you'll see that these appearances are completely deceptive. Good luck.